Welcome back. Today we're going to be doing LeetCode 242 valid anagram, but with a twist. Today I have my friend Dominick Monaco, who's a software engineer with about 2 years experience looking for his next role. We're going to be doing a mock interview and we're going to be doing a little bit of pair programming. If you haven't already, like and subscribe to this channel. It really helps me out. Alrighty, without further ado, let's get started. Hey, my name's Thomas. Today we're going to be doing a mock interview with my friend Dominick Monaco. It's going to be pretty fun. This is something that I haven't done before, so I'm really excited to get going with this. I'm going to be trying to do a mock interview with some LeetCode problems, and today's problem is going to be valid anagrams. It's an easy problem on LeetCode. What I'll do first is I'll go ahead and go through the question, go through the prompt, and then Dominick is going to go ahead and try to figure out the answer to this prompt. Along the way, I'll help him out. I'll give him some pointers if he has any questions or things like that. But hopefully at the very end, we'll get an answer. And if we can, if we can refactor it and build upon it, then great. We're going to do that at the very end. So I'm really excited. Hey, Dominick, why don't you go ahead and tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Thomas. I'm Dominick. I've been a software engineer for about 1.5 years, coming up in 2 years. I got my start in 100 Devs. Always shout out that community. It's a wonderful place for new devs to get started. And yeah, I'm a JavaScript dev. I've worked in React. I've worked in, Node. Super interested hobby-wise in the outdoors. And yeah, I'm just here to have a really good time.
Cool. Alrighty, sweet. Well, let me go ahead and grab the Replit and we can get started. All right, so today's question is going to be valid anagrams. So with valid anagrams, our problem statement is given two strings s and t, return true if t is an anagram of s and false otherwise. An anagram is a word or phrase formed by rearranging the letters of a different word or phrase, typically using all of the original letters exactly one time. So for example 1, we have an input with two strings, s, which is equal to anagram, and t, which is equal to anagram, but it's in a different order. So we have N-A-G-A-R-A-M, but it has all of the same letters as s, right? So we do have an anagram. For example number 2, we have two different strings, rat and car, but this one is false, right? Because it has different letters in it. For instance, the T should be a C, but it's not, or the C should be a T and it's not. So that is the problem. I have an index.js file here, and I have a couple of different things as well. I went ahead and put in the template for creating a map in here, and then also we have the two different examples as before. So with anagram, the example 1, we should be expecting true, and the example 2, we should be expecting false. So without further ado, Dominick, take it away. Go ahead and show us what you got. How would you solve this problem?
So yeah, I always like to start personally with the brute force method. I think that at minimum, it makes you look cooler when you get to the map stuff and when you get to the more linear time stuff.
Yeah.
So let's start with a brute force, and let's start with like pseudocoding that out.
Go for it.
So I always like to start looking at what our inputs are. So if we look at what we're taking in, we have two variables, right? We have s and t. Both of those are strings.
Sure.
So just write that out. Two variables, but two strings, s and t, right? And then second question is kind of, what are we returning? What are we outputting?
Sure.
And in this case, that's a Boolean, right? True or false? Let's see, Boolean. And then if we look at our examples right here, we have anagram, we have rat and car.
Sure.
There's no like non-alphanumeric characters I'm seeing, right? There's no like tricksy stuff that you might need to regex, like semicolons, things like that. So
yeah,
it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
I'd say.
Yeah, that's a great clarification. There are no weird characters in here like underscores or exclamation points or any punctuation, things like that. So you're off to a good start. Yeah.
Perfect. And then, so yeah, we have our example. So I guess let's kind of start thinking about how I do this kind of brute forcing it. So if I were to define like what an anagram is at like a really base level, it's a string that has two strings that have the same exact length, the same exact characters, and they're just kind of out of order, right?
Okay.
They're in a different order.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing we can kind of look for is, well, are the strings we're getting the same length? If not, we can immediately just throw back false, right?
Yeah.
So we kind of have a conditional right off the top of, is S and T the same length? If not, just kill it.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
Let's see. And then let's see. So conditional, if S dot length is not equal T dot length, let's see, return false. All right, and now we can kind of get into the meat and potatoes.
Okay.
Now, what I'm seeing here is, I think the easiest, most straightforward way we can do this is to kind of take the strings we have, split them up, sort them in an order, right?
Okay.
And then join them back together. And then we have two sorted strings, right? And then we can kind of compare those strings. If they're the same, you return true. And then if they're different at all, that's not an anagram, that's false. Does that sound like a pretty reasonable way of like handling this?
Yeah, it does.
Cool. So let me just pseudocode that out. So let's see, take in a string. We're gonna not sort it. We're gonna split it up. We're gonna sort it, join it back together, and then we're gonna have conditional logic again. Let's see, and then if, let's see, I'm gonna say sorted S does not equal sorted T. Let's see, return false, and then if not, return true. And I think I'd actually flip these, when I'm programming it. So if sorted S truly equals sorted T, return true, and then if not, false.
Yeah, sure.
But just for pseudocode, we kind of have the general logic.
Yeah.
Before we start coding, is there anything you think I'm missing? How does this look to you? As a general like theory.
Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. Yeah, I love that you have already started to kind of break down this problem. I love that you've started to pseudocode some stuff out. So that way that kind of gives you a guideline to follow as you're working this thing out. I'm going to flip the question. Do you think that you missed anything on this question so far? Is there any edge cases that you think maybe that you've missed?
I think it's a good question. I mean, really the edge cases are kind of in the examples. And I think given our examples as we have them, like we said, there's no alphanumeric bit funny business going on.
Yeah.
And let's see, the one thing that can be a little tricky is with the sorting method in JavaScript, it doesn't always sort as you would initially think. So we're going to try it. I know there are a few different ways of, there's ways to get it to work. If we hit a problem, we can work through it. But I think that will be a potential issue of like a little bit of debugging, is getting that sorting method to maybe work as I'm thinking of it and as I'm intending.
Cool. Well, let's go ahead and get started by coding this up. I think you're off to a great start. And then, we can talk about it from there.
Sick. Let's do it. So let's start. Where do we start in the... I'm actually going to start, even though the pseudocode's a little bit messy, let's start doing this in here. That way I have the framework on hand. And then we can kind of clean it up as we're going. So let's see, as we can start here. So if s.length does not equal t.length, return false. So that's our immediate condition. And then, let's see. And then, let's see, taking a string. So we can get rid of this line of pseudocode, and then right below it, there's probably a more optimal way to do this. I'm just going to do what kind of is intuitive for me at first. So I'm going to assign s and t to different variables.
Okay.
So we're going to say we can even use, I would use in the pseudocode, sorted s equal s dot let's see, split. Put that in there. Dot sort, and then actually sort just goes like that, and then dot join. Cool. Then before I get any further, I want to see what this returns for fun. So I'm going to console.log. Let's see. So if is anagram is right here, and then so I guess here it would be return, and then because we already have the console.logs in the examples down here, this should just pop up. So if I run this, what happens? Yep. So we got AAGMNR. Is that what that is what we were expecting?
Yeah.
I'm pretty
Yeah.
Perfect.
So we got AAG. Yeah, that's correct.
Awesome. Easy.
Cool.
So then we can assign that. Let's see, so return sorted S. So then yeah, make that a variable. We can make sorted T a variable. Here I'm just going to copy this. Let's see. And I'm going to clean up a little bit of this white space, getting a little ahead of myself. There we go. Oh. And then let's start with the conditional logic. So if sorted S dot length, I guess no, it'd be truly equal. We don't have to worry about the lengths anymore. So if sorted S is truly equal to sorted T, return true, and then else, let's see, return false. And let me clean up. I'm going to get rid of this pseudocode. I feel like this code's pretty self-explanatory.
Good.
And let's clean up some of this white space. Cool. And yeah, I'm super curious to see if this works. Cool to run it.
Yeah, go for it.
True and false.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's looking pretty good. How could we sort of clean up this last piece of conditional? Are you familiar with like ternaries or anything like that?
I'm a little iffy on ternaries.
Okay.
I'm totally happy with trying to write one off the cuff.
Let's write it. Let's write a ternary here. So instead of using this if statement, right, we can use a ternary instead. So what we're going to do is we're going to return the ternary. So let's go ahead and write it. Let's go ahead and write it above the if statement here. Now, I will go ahead and say this. I've worked in previous places where some managers, some developers do not like ternaries because it's a little bit less readable. But it does clean it up a little bit more. You know, you're writing it on one line, and you know it's sort of impressive. It's cleaner code when you can write a ternary, but it's very similar to this, and this is a great example of when you could and would use the ternary. So let's go ahead and do that right here. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to go ahead and return.
Let's see.
And you want to use the same conditional. So sorted S equal to sorted T.
And the question mark, right?
And then the question mark. And that's sort of like, okay, does this equal this? Oh, it does. Let's return true. Otherwise, which is the colon, let's return false, right? And then you can even like space in between the, here, I'll do it. Yeah, there you go.
Sorry, we both tried to do it at the same time.
All good. So then you can go ahead and run that, or I ran it, and then you still get the same answer, but then we can even go a little bit further, right? Because we can clean up this whole thing. Like we can just return if sorted S is equal to sorted T, and then, you know, we'll get rid of that whole thing. It's just asking, like, it'll return back anyway.
Oh yeah, we'll do that. That's right.
Yeah. So I think this is I think you did pretty good. Yeah, you got the answer pretty quickly. If I asked you to use a map, could you implement this same solution using a map? Or could you find the solution using a map?
I definitely could do it, like in the abstract, right? The the way a map would work is, I guess let's start with what this does. Let's reiterate that really quick, and let's do like how the map solution would work in abstract, right?
Sure.
So with this solution, what we're doing is we're saying between anagram and rat and car, what we're doing is we're sorting the strings, and then we're just comparing them and seeing if they're the same.
That's correct.
What the map solution does is, because a map is a series of key value pairs, right? We are counting the number of occurrences of each letter we find, and then we're just making sure that the number of occurrences match up, right?
Yeah. That's correct.
And,
yeah.
No, go ahead.
I just want to say too, like, I think it's the only reason I would ask for the map solution versus this solution, because this is very simplified. The only reason I would ask for a map version of this, or I believe that an interviewer would ask for the map version of this, and I don't think they would. I think they would just move on to another problem, to be honest. But if they wanted to press the issue and they asked you for a map solution, reason would be, okay, like, what kind of data structures do you know, and like do you know how to work with different data structures? Because there might be a case, right, in the interview or in the job where you're like having to use a map, and maybe that's the easiest and fastest solution for you, right? So that's the I just want to preface this with the reason for asking for the map solution would be that. But I think this is totally valid. I think this is a great answer. I think it would just be fun to kind of do something a little different. Okay, so switching gears here a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and code this up, and Dominick is going to kind of walk with me through this process, and we're going to talk through it together. But at the end, we're going to have a different solution than what we had at the very beginning, because really this is something that, we're walking through together. This is something that maybe you'll do on the job where you're pair programming or something like that. And it's a really different kind of experience when it comes to an interview. Pair programming is such a different world than just doing everything on your own. So that's really what we're going to try to implement here. So Dominick, we're going to go ahead and implement a map the way that I kind of know how to do a map, and then from there we'll just walk through the process together, okay? And then you can describe to me kind of what I'm doing. So I have down here, cool. So I have down here a map, and I have some code, but I'm just going to implement it from scratch, okay? So this is totally correct. For each character iterated, if it exists, we're going to increment the value. If not, we're going to set it equal to 1. So that's totally correct. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to say let characters equal an empty object. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say let I equal 0, and I'm going to say I is less than s.length, because we're going to iterate from the beginning to the end of s, right? I'm going to say I plus plus. And the next thing that we're going to do is I always like to have a letter, because here, like, I know exactly that I have one letter and that is what I'm doing. You can always use like a for each or for map or whatever. There's some different ways that you can do a for loop, but this is kind of the way that I like to do it. Just because I like to keep track of like 0 and length and all that sort of thing. So the next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to We're going to check characters, right, for letter. And if it doesn't exist, Dominick, what are we going to do?
If it doesn't exist, we're setting the value equal to 1.
Right. So characters of letter is going to equal to 1. And if it does exist, what are we going to do?
We're incrementing, so we're just adding 1 to whatever the value is.
That's right.
Character's letter.
That's right. Yeah. So as we loop through both of these strings, what we're going to end up doing in the end is we're going to end up creating a map for it, right? So every value is going to have a pair here. Let me get rid of this console. So let's go ahead and return characters, and we should see our map here at the very end created. Whoops.
The fun part.
If I forgot to add the if. There you go.
There we go.
Okay, cool. So now we have our map here, right? So now we have our map. I want you to kind of walk me through some different scenarios. How would we check T versus S? We have all of the values for S here, right? And we have all of the letters and all of the numbers and occurrences of the characters in S. But how would we check T against this?
It's a really good question. So the hard solution, right, is making another map and comparing the two maps. Like that is a possible solution, but not the one that I think makes the most sense.
Sure.
So if we were to compare T against S, I'm blanking.
Also, I'll give you another hint as well. What are we doing in the first for loop? In the first for loop, what are we kind of like? What are we checking here?
If the current character exists in the map. So then if we were to, I mean, we can check if we loop through T and then we check if whatever we're iterating through with T exists in the map. That would work for all the values. Like in this example, it would hit every value besides A, because A has 3 different occurrences, right? So it's like if it has one occurrence, that if we're just checking if a letter exists and the value of that letter is 1, then that totally works.
Okay.
For the case of 3, right, we have to be able to say this not only exists, but it exists an exact amount of times.
Right. And so you're saying that it wouldn't work, but let me offer you this. Let's say that we have 3 A's in the second string, which is T, like we do, right? And this is 3. How would we compare that? So if I were to say, all right, here's one, I have a bucket of A's in map, right? In characters map. I have a bucket of A's. You can use this amount of A's for your string. But if you have an extra need for another one, well, you're out of luck.
Yeah.
Does that kind of make sense a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like kind of what you're saying is that for every appearance of a character, we decrement the key value in the map, and then when it hits 0, it kind of busts. And then what we're checking for is that at the end of the day, if all the values of the map are 0, then exactly 0, then we've hit our mark.
That's perfect. That's the perfect answer. Yeah, that's totally correct. So let's go ahead and code that up. So we're going to say I like to change this up. So I'm going to call this J instead of I. And I'm going to go ahead and increment through T.length. And we're going to say T++. Oh, sorry. We're going to say J++. And then, I think you're totally correct. So let letter equal T of J, right? And just like we checked before, if the character exists in the map and it's greater than 0, right? We can decrement from it. But that's the other edge case, right? Like it has to be greater than 0. So let's say characters of letter exist and characters of letter is greater than 0, then we're going to return, we're going to decrement. So we're going to say characters of letter minus. Otherwise, we're going to say there are no more letters in our bucket that you can use. And if that's the case, then we're going to
do return false.
That's correct. Yeah. All right. And then you said, all right, if all the map is 0, we're going to return true, right?
Yeah.
So after we get out of that loop, that second loop, and we've already ran through the whole thing, then we can return true.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and see that. Let's go ahead and see that in action. Yeah, so we got true and we got false. And just to be sure, let's go ahead and check our map here. So we're going to we're going to return our character's map. And we can see as well, like when this comes up. Whoops, characters.
Yeah.
So
Boom.
now you can see, boom, right? Like all of our anagram is down to 0 and we're good to go. We're going to return true. Otherwise, like it's not. So we're going to return false, right? It's not going to reach that. It's not going to reach that because it's reaching this one here instead.
Yeah. Because as soon as 1 goes below 0, or it attempts to, it automatically hits the false condition, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's correct. Alrighty. Okay. That's great.
I like that. Super elegant solution. Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Sweet. Okay. Okay. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. Thank you for watching our solution. Dominic, I just want to ask you, like, how did you think that went? What did you think about the whole process? What do you think about, I guess, kind of the solution and also just the process that we did?
I think it was super fun. You know, I think it was very like fluid is how I describe it. Like, you know, you're a very good, kind person, great host, very accommodating. And well, it was a little nervous at first. It always is in these situations. Coming up and you kind of working through the problem with me, you know, having a plan of attack and kind of, you know, just very helpful, more helpful than honestly most of the interviews I've been in with the hiring recruit client manager. So yeah, 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
If anyone's out there watching this, hit up Thomas's DMs and ask him to come on. It's a great time.
Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah, like I said, thank you so much for coming on. I thought you did a great job at pseudocoding out the problem and then, you know, kind of like thinking through the process as you walk through it. I just want to say, like, not every interview is going to have an algorithm. Not everybody loves algorithms. Algorithms are difficult, and yeah, it's just kind of hard to get into. But you know, I've been doing these algorithm videos for a little while now, and it's been really interesting. Just as much as I have been doing it and not like feeling like I'm just like not great at algorithms, I'm learning so much just by doing them and just like learning different people's solutions and that sort of thing. So it's been really beneficial to my experience, and then also my interview experience as well has just been more enjoyable that way. So I'm really excited to push out this video. I'm really thankful for you, Dominic, to come on and to offer yourself up to try to do this problem. I know it's not a usual thing to do, but I really appreciate you helping me out. So yeah,
happy to be here. You know, and I just +1 to everything. Like as a guest, you know, coming on and seeing like kind of how your brain works through these algorithms and kind of where you naturally go. Also super insightful.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me and Dominic along with this mock interview. I really had a blast. I really love doing that. If you haven't already, leave me a subscribe or a thumbs up and a like. I really appreciate it, and it really helps me out. With that being said, I hope you have a great day and a great rest of your week.